right, welcome back, guys. I know it's been a real long time since I've recorded a video. I've been very busy with life, but I've still been drawing and still been doing art, and I want to share a little bit of my thoughts and things that have been going on. So, Inktober is coming up. Ink is probably my favorite medium to work in right now, at least in my sketchbook, ink and watercolor. And I usually would use a Bic. Um, to draw, and I really like Bics for that purpose. But more so lately, I've been exploring the brush pens, and I really like the brush pens, and I'll show you some of the drawings that I've been doing with those recently. Um, but I think in previous videos, I've talked about um, not holding on to your drawings too much, not thinking of them as too precious, and um, drawing in ink kind of facilitates that. If you make a mistake, you just made a mistake. You can either alter it or just leave it as it is. But when you draw with pencil, and this is something that I see with a lot of young artists, I work at a school, so I know, I love to see the students' art, and they get really attached to a single drawing, and so they draw in pencil and they erase until they get the thing exactly how they want it. And that's really good if you're trying to produce something of quality, a finished product. But when you're learning and practicing, seeing your mistakes and just iterating, that is doing the same thing over and over again until you become so familiar with it that it's easy to reproduce. I think that that's probably a better practice for learning. Now, I came to a conclusion recently that I've gone too far in that direction. And as you can see, my drawings, I have a lot of little doodles and a lot of little experimentations, but I have very little finish work. So I kind of feel like I've gone too far in that direction of not holding the things that I produce as I don't know, sacred or like valuable. I just kind of draw and I throw it away and I draw, but I've really been wanting to finish something lately. Like really take it to its finish end and something that I can say, like, yeah, I'm done with this. This is how I intended it. Whether or not I will improve and be able to do it better another time. Um, I want to, focus a little bit more. And so I was tempted to buy some pencils specifically for that. And just, when I'm doing my digital work, I start a lot, but I very rarely finish things. And so I really want to focus on that. Like I've gone too far in the other direction, and that's kind of the way things are a lot of times. This page has some notes from the recent Cynics Design Robert Stacy's brainstorm class, a flash brainstorm class. I really enjoyed it. If anybody gets the opportunity to take one of Cynics' classes, I highly recommend it. They're just amazing, and I level up every single time I take one of his classes. This one was on post-realistic digital painting, and it was awesome. Really learned a lot of little tips and tricks and ways of understanding color and composition that have been really helpful. So maybe I'll do a video on that another time. Here you can see I started to bring in the brush pen. I think, let me see if I have it here. Yeah, I've been using this one and I really liked it. It's the Pigma Medium by Sakura. It's a really good pen, but I got a little frustrated with how fast I ran through this. And so, in attempt to maybe save money or just kind of be a little bit more flexible with my brush pen usage, I've been using these water brush pens, and then I've just filled it with Higgins ink that I diluted. And I'll show you in a little bit how I use that to create midtones and darks. Great for composition practice, great for becoming better with your draftsmanship, things along those lines. So you can here see a little bit more ink. Um, Another thing that I've been thinking about is I need to focus. Like, I need to focus in on something. Like I was mentioning before, when I take the Cynics design classes for through Brainstorm, they're 5 weeks long and there's homework. And so during those weeks, I'm kind of focusing on one topic and I see a big level up. And any time in the past that I've really focused on one thing, for an extended period of time, it doesn't even need to be like weeks and weeks. It could just be like a week of focusing on one topic, like a week of focusing on hands, or a week of focusing on faces, or a week of focusing on composition. I see a significant level up. So I want to focus on that. These are some notes that I took from Alfonso Dunn's video. So I'm also teaching like a little like a club at the school that I teach at, and so I'm teaching kids visual storytelling. And my selling point was, hey, if you can draw a stick figure, you can start to draw stories, and you can advance to drawing creatures and animals and environments and all that kind of stuff. So this is what I started them on, is just a stick figure with a rectangle for the torso and some basic things about creating depth and how you can position the figure. And these are actually really fun. They're great for doodles. So, like if you're sitting at work or something and you're in an office meeting or something, it's fun to do these little doodles, and you can do story. You can tell stories with them, like this one down here. And these are just copies of Alfonso Dunn's stuff, so I don't want to take credit for like coming up with this by myself. And he does it, of course, way better than I do. But you've got like this kind of floating figure and all these people worshiping around him, or you've got this guy sitting on a ledge lecturing to people. Um, there's an image here of somebody playing a drum and people dancing around them. And it's really fun just to keep things really simple and have fun with it. So then you can also include some geometric forms in perspective and then try to add figures interacting with those forms. So that's really cool. So yeah, I'm trying to start them off with the very basics and then working up there. Um, but for me personally, I want to get better at this. I want to get better at putting figures and objects into three-dimensional space to be able to tell a story. So I think that that's the first thing that I'm going to focus on, is leveling up. And I'm going to keep it real simple. I'm going to just have, you know, these three-dimensional objects, and I have characters interacting with them in a very basic way. Because if you can draw these guys, then it's not really difficult to make things look more, I don't know, what would you say, like more fleshed out, more developed. It's really not that difficult. Here's some notes. I went back and I rewatched all of the videos from the post-realism digital painting class, and I made a secondary level of notes after I had kind of like sat on it for a little bit and let it process through my mind. And of course here I'm bringing the brush pen. Now, one of the things that I really wanted to be able to do with my sketchbook was to be able to do 2 or 3 or 4 tone studies. And I had these Copic markers, and even though this is a moleskin, it has very thick paper, it's like the artistic moleskin. I wouldn't say very thick, but it's pretty thick paper. Um, Even that would bleed through those Copic markers, those alcohol markers. And I didn't really like that, because I like to be able to draw on all my pages without having to worry about things bleeding through to the other side. So what I decided on was to focus more on watercolor and to have the brush pens filled with diluted ink to do those midtones. Um, and it seems to be working out pretty well. Though I will put out to the community, if anybody's made it this far into the video, one of the things I've noticed is that sometimes the ink, the midtone, isn't consistent in its color. So if anybody has any advice on that, I'd really greatly appreciate that. Like, how can I make my midtones with ink more consistent? Sometimes it comes out pretty light, sometimes it comes out pretty dark, and I just want a little bit more consistency. This here is an example of iteration of like really trying to understand a form. And so this is like a fingertip. And one of the things in one of the Cynics design classes that I took was on drawing hands, and it was really great. But one of the things he said was practice your fingertips. And really, they're just kind of like these bean shapes for the fingertips, depending on the style of finger that you want to draw. But seeing if you can draw those in a bunch of different perspectives, going up, down, all around, that type of thing. You can see here I've jumped to drapery, trying to improve that because my figures oftentimes are nude and I really want to improve on the ability to put clothing on them, to design them, all those type of fun things. And then again, here I am jumping to skulls. Like, so I need to focus on one thing for an extended period of time. And like I said, I think it's going to be perspective and creating that 3D space and putting characters into those 3D spaces with very simple characters. If I can spend about a week on that, I think that I'll see a pretty good upgrade in my ability. I'll level up. But had fun, and this is based off of Cynic's video, his anatomy quick tips on sketching skulls and how that's really beneficial for learning how to draw faces, and experimenting a little bit with more brush pens. This is watercolor, and what I did was I laid down a very light wash like you can see here, and then you can go back over it. What I really like about this is you can really build up the values. Like I said, this paper is pretty good quality paper. It's got some good thickness to it, um, but it will receive maybe about 3 washes of watercolor before it really starts to break apart. And it doesn't really warp too much. Like if I close my sketchbook, you can see that it doesn't look like super warped or anything like that. A little warpage right there, but not a big deal. Um, so yeah, working on some colors and seeing how I can get those gradations to show the form with watercolors, and just really having fun with the brush pen, doing really expressive um, shapes and things like that. You can see it a little bit more here, and this is where I started to experiment with the diluted ink. And I really like that because, again, you can kind of go in really lightly and create some shapes and then pull things out of that in a really beautiful and natural way. So that's what's going on right now. I'll try to post more frequently. But yeah, if anybody knows a good way to get a more consistent wash, like I said, I'm using Higgins ink. I only bought it because it was the cheapest thing at Hobby Lobby. And I know that the world of ink is like a vast and very impressive space, but maybe somebody with more experience or who has an interest specifically in the area of ink will know how to get a more consistent wash. But it's working out pretty well now, and I'm pretty happy with it so far. Well, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.